It's been 3.5 years since Vladimir Putin launched his so-called lightning operation to capture Kyiv in just 72 hours. That plan failed, and instead the world got a grinding war that has already taken close to 1 million Russian casualties. Today, the front line is frozen. Ukraine refuses to surrender. And Russia keeps pounding civilian infrastructure day after day: power stations, hospitals, schools. For Moscow, everything is fair game. The logic is simple. If we can't break the army, we'll break the people. But Ukrainians are not giving in. Which leaves us with a fundamental question. What does Putin actually want? The answer is simpler than it seems. This war isn't really about oil, wheat, or even territory. At its core, it's about legacy. Putin doesn't want to be remembered as just another Kremlin bureaucrat, or worse, as the man who launched and lost a war. He wants to go down in history as a modern Tsar, the leader who restored Russia's pride, no matter the cost. And for him, the cost truly doesn't matter. Russian lives, Ukrainian lives, it's all expendable, as long as his name is written in gold in the history books. But here's the problem. Even if Putin disappeared tomorrow, Russia wouldn't know how to go back to normal. The war hasn't just consumed lives, it has consumed the economy, Russia's war economy for the past 3 years. The Kremlin has put nearly everything into military production. Moscow now spends more than $170 billion a year on defense, almost 8% of the country. GDP, and about 40% of the entire government budget. Nearly half of every ruble the state collects goes straight to the military-industrial complex. And this isn't just about tanks and missiles. Millions of jobs now depend directly or indirectly on this war economy. Since 2023, about 600,000 new workers have joined the arms industry. Unemployment has fallen to just 2%, and wages are rising fast. Before the invasion, the average salary was around 55,000 rubles a month. Today, it's over 85,000 and climbing. On the surface, this looks like an economic miracle. But there's a catch. It's all artificial. Russia isn't really growing. It's just spending itself into the ground. Guns and butter. Traditionally, countries at war must choose between guns or butter, military spending or consumer goods. Putin is trying to produce both. Factories churn out tanks and shells. But Moscow is also pumping billions into domestic food production and other industries to replace Western imports. When foreign companies fled Russia after the invasion, new made-in-Russia firms took their place. But many of them survive only because of constant state subsidies. In a real free market, they'd collapse in weeks. This is the iron rule of economics. Wars don't create wealth, they destroy it. Few sectors may benefit, but the country as a whole loses. Russians know this. But like any addict, knowing the drug is killing you doesn't mean you can stop. The addict's at the top, and let us be clear. Addiction isn't just about the nation, it's about the elites. Since the invasion, Russia has seen the birth of a new class of oligarchs. When multinationals like Apple or Microsoft fled, they sold their assets at rock-bottom prices. Kremlin insiders snapped them up for next to nothing, and today those same people are making fortunes. Entire industries like pharmaceuticals now depend almost completely on state contracts. Billionaires like Viktor Kharitonin have doubled their wealth thanks to government spending. This explains why so many at the top don't want the war to end. For them, peace would be a disaster. Their companies would lose contracts, their monopolies would collapse, and their fortunes would vanish. So they push for more tanks, more drones, more missiles, because their wealth depends on it. The cost of peace. Imagine if peace came tomorrow. Russia would face mass layoffs, shuttered factories, bankrupt companies, and social unrest on a scale not seen since the fall of the Soviet Union. And let us be honest, Western investors aren't lining up to pour money back into Russia, said SY4 Putinand. For much of the Russian elite, it's safer to keep the war going, even at a terrible cost, than to face the storm that would come with peace. And even if the fighting stopped, the Kremlin is already planning to keep the factories running, or building arsenals for years to come. Stockpiles of weapons are tempting, and history shows that full arsenals often lead to new wars. The long decline? But there's another problem. Before the war, Russia's economy was fueled by oil and gas. Those golden years are fading fast. China and India still buy Russian crude, but profits are shrinking, investments are falling, and Russia's oil fields are aging. At the same time, the rest of the economy is rotting. Out of 20 major industrial sectors, only 4 are profitable, and 3 of them are directly tied to the military. Corporate debt has exploded, mostly in defense industries. Inflation is rising, growth is stalling, and outside Moscow, many regions are already in freefall. Take Komi and Chelyabinsk, 2 industrial regions, in the first half of 2025. Income tax revenues there fell by 50% and 33% respectively. Ordinary Russians are paying the price for a war they never asked for.